So for the second part of this lesson, 6.1, we're going to look at percents and decimals. Now, all of these numbers are equivalent, the fraction, the decimal, and the percent. They're just a different way to express the same value. Sometimes it's easier to use a fraction. Sometimes it's better to use a decimal. Sometimes it's more convenient to use a percent. And we will discuss those ways in class. So before I tell you how to write a decimal as a percent, because we're going to use a little shortcut, we're going to do the long way first. So we have the number 0.91, and if we think about it, right, it's 91 hundredths. That's how we would actually say that number, right? So then when we look at the fraction we have 91 out of 100. So we have a fraction out of 100, which means we have a percent. For the second one, again, if we write this as a fraction or if we say it, it's 4 hundredths, tenths, and then hundredths. Again, what is 4 hundredths? It is 4%. The last one is a little bit neat to see. So 1.3 is 1 3/10, right? Which then, if we make that into a mixed number, or I'm sorry, an improper fraction, is 13 over 10. And then if we go ahead and multiply it by 10, it's 130 over 100. Remember, I want to try to get that denominator to be 100 because that's a percent. So then as a percent, I have 130%. So if we take a look at each of these examples, I want you to follow the decimal point. So we have 0.91, the decimal point moves to after the 1 to get 91. We have 0.04, the decimal point moves twice to come after the 4. We have 4%. We have 1.3, if we move the decimal twice, we get 130. So that's our shortcut. To write a decimal as a percent, we move the decimal point 2 places to the right. So that should mean to go back from a percent to a decimal, we should do the reverse. Move the decimal point 2 places left. And again, let's see why this works. So 78%, if we're following our shortcut, the decimal is here after the 8. We swoop it to the left twice. So then it should be in front of the 7 and should be 0.78. If we think about this again, what does 78% really mean? It means 78 out of 100. And how do we write 78 hundredths as a decimal? We write it as 0.78. So again, it all flows together. What's the percent? What's the fraction? What's the decimal? For this one, 4.2%, take your decimal, swoop it twice to the left. Now, if you have kind of like a swoop that's unfilled, you would put a 0 there. So this would be 0.042%, or sorry, 0.042 decimal. And then the last one, 9%. Again, where's the decimal? If you don't see it, it's after the last digit, to the right of the last digit. 1, 2. Fill in your swoop with a 0. It is the 0.09, the decimal 0.09. So that's how you convert percents to decimals and decimals to percents. For the last part, ladies, I have some example problems I'd like you to try, and I want you to pause the video, try them, and then come back to the video and check your answers. So here are the answers to the example problems. For the first 3, we want to write each percent as a fraction and a decimal. Again, so I'm starting as a percent. I'm going to use my definition of percent, which is a number out of 100, or a ratio out of 100. So 55% becomes 55 out of 100. To make it a decimal, I just think of what decimal is equal to 55 hundredths, which is 0.55. To make it a fraction, I reduce it, and I divide it by 5. So 30% is 0.30, or 0.3 as a decimal, and it's 3 out of 10 as a fraction. And 7% is 0.07 as a decimal, and 7 hundredths as a fraction. For the next set of problems, 4, 5, and 6, we have to write each fraction as a percent. So remember, our goal is get that denominator to be 100. We're trying to write a comparison out of 100. So for 20, 7/20ths, I multiply by 5, which gives me 35 hundredths, or 35%. For number 5, that's when I have to write a proportion. 8 times no nice number equals 100, so I write 7/8 equals x over 100. Cross multiply and divide, x is 87.5%. And, I'm sorry, x is not the percent, the entire fraction is the 7/8 is 87.5%. And then 2 out of 25, I would multiply the numerator and denominator by 4 to get 8 hundredths, or 8%. And then finally, for 7, 8, and 9, I'm going to write each decimal as a percent, and I'm going to use my trick, which means I'm going to move my decimal to the right 2 places. Or again, you could think of, what does 48 hundredths look like? It's 48 out of 100. It's 48%. 2 thousandths is 0.2%. It's a 2/10 of a percent. And then 0.01, 100th, is 1%. So we'll be discussing this more in class the next time I see you, and I hope this was a good introduction to percents and that you are able to see the connection between ratios, what we did last chapter, ratios and proportions, and also looking at fractions and decimals.